Welcome back to the Why Know Something Crazy podcast. Last week I didn't end up doing a podcast, but I'm back this week. I'm back here with one of my besties. Do you want to introduce yourself a little bit?
I'm Bella. I've known Jenna for 2 years now.
Yeah.
About 2 years, yeah. Like what I do,
We can
or
get into that a little bit later.
okay.
But yeah. So the question that I ask every single person that comes on this podcast is, what is the craziest thing you've seen God do in your life, or done in your life, or through your life? Like, how have you seen God do the craziest thing?
The craziest thing would probably be move me back to Raleigh. I never thought I would end up back here. When I left, I was 13. Actually, I think I just turned 14. And I had so much negative energy and connotation with the Raleigh area. I had a lot of bad memories. I was bullied, and I really needed that fresh start. And there was a lot of hate in my heart, and I really did not ever think I was going to come back here except to visit. And lo and behold, I graduated, and the only job I got offered was in Raleigh. So I figured, I guess I'm coming back to Raleigh. And I very vividly remember asking God, why am I coming back here? Like, I told you I don't want to go back there. And I had to trust him and the fact that I was employed here. And here I am 2 years later, and I honestly don't want to move. And I finally have dealt with the pain and the hurt and everything from the past. And I am building a life that I really love here, meeting amazing people along the way, and just finally finding like what makes me happy. And I don't hate Raleigh anymore. Instead, I love it, and I don't want to leave.
Yeah. Well, I'm so glad that God brought you back to Raleigh, because I met you at young adult, and you just became one of my best friends, and absolutely love you. And couldn't imagine not having you in my life. So I love you.
Love you.
Is there anything else that maybe you want to share about what did that journey look like, moving from, was Charlotte, right? You were living in Charlotte. Like, how did that from moving to Charlotte land you in Raleigh? Like, what about
Yeah,
like the
so
mindset?
I moved to Charlotte when I was 14, and I kind of rebuilt myself. Growing up, I didn't have a lot of faith. I didn't go to church. I believed there was a God, but I didn't actively pursue him. And I was about 16 when I started going to church. It was actually because of my sister. So shout out to her. And I very vividly remember the first day I ever went to church. And they asked me at the end of the service, they asked like the whole church body, raise your hand if you believe the prayer that you just prayed. And I raised my hand, not knowing what that meant. And they like come over and they give me a Bible and they pray over me, and I'm like, what did I just do? And after that, I like got plugged into a small group, and I honestly like kind of dove right in. And it was really great. I had just gotten my license, and so I could drive. And my sister stopped going to church, I think, a couple months later. But I kept going. I finally had a community, and I was like, this is so cool. Something that I thought I wanted for so long. And then college came around, and I got into my top choice, which was East Carolina. And go Pirates. And I never thought that I would end up at ECU. I always thought it was a party school. And I swore up and down I was never going to go there. My mom made me tour it, and I fell in love the second I stepped on campus. And it was just a breath of fresh air. I knew when I left that I wanted to have a strong faith through college, that I wanted to be involved in different organizations. And I kept watching my local church online on Sundays. And it wasn't until my junior year that I decided that I was ready to kind of take that next step and get involved in church, and I became an online e-group leader. Um, and I was leading women from all around the country. Like I had one girl in Egypt, one girl in South Africa, some people here in the US, but not local to my area. And it was so exciting and so rewarding. Um, but I was very much not in a good place with my faith. Um, my mom had just been diagnosed with cancer. I was going through a lot of friendship struggles, and I was very mad at God. And then I went through this huge identity crisis my senior year. Still, probably, I'm still leading at this point. I'm still going to church, but I'm not in a place where I would say I had a good relationship with God. And then, um, my senior year of college, I was facing a bunch of different identity crises all at once. I was in a sorority all through college, and I was an ECU ambassador. And by last semester, I was inactive for ambassador, so I wasn't really actively doing stuff for that. And then I went early alum from my sorority because of health issues. And so I felt like I lost my whole college identity and everything I had built over the past 4 years. And I wasn't leaning on God. I was just honestly, I was just going through it, and I didn't know what I wanted to do. And there was one night I remember I was in the middle of a panic attack, and I've had anxiety for as long as I can remember, but I was in the middle of a panic attack. I was on my living room floor, and I'm just praying for the first time in a long time, like sobbing to God, asking Him what was next for me. I didn't know where I was going, what I was going to do. I didn't know what I wanted to do with life. I decided I was going to grad school, but I was like, do I stay in Greenville? Do I move? Do I get a job? Like, I didn't know what I was going to do with my life. And I genuinely thought my life was falling apart. And he spoke to me in that moment, and he calmed me, and he reminded me that he was there. And that was kind of like my come to Jesus moment, I guess. And I immediately felt this like excitement and spark again. I got offered the position in Raleigh, I think the next week. Um, and it was like, okay. And there was a lot of ups and downs, and going through that, I stopped leading. And I kind of just took a step back from that to kind of rebuild this faith, and trust in Him. And it got me back to Raleigh. And one of the first things I did at that new job was find someone who I knew was Christian. She actually had the same tattoo as me. It was a cross. And I was like, what church do you go to? And she said, our church, Hope Community. And I was like, okay. It took about 2 months for me to finally build up the courage to go. I went to a Thursday night service, and I went up to young adult afterwards, and I was like, what is this? It was very overwhelming. But I look back on that now, and I'm so excited because, like, 2 years ago, little baby innocent Bella, who knew nothing about what was going to happen over the next couple of years and how much my faith would grow and how much I would learn to lean on God. And I'm just so thankful for that.
Yeah. Well, I'm so glad that you able to take those little steps and trusting God led you to where you are now. Like even from the little short time that I've known you, like was it only like 2 years
Two
now.
years now, yeah.
Like that seemed like a small time. Like we're both 23, 24 years old, but like even though those little small little times, like I've seen you grow. First time met you to where you are now. Like who would have thought like us leading actual and young adult and like
Mm-hmm.
just it's crazy. Just crazy to see like each of those little steps
Yeah.
of God just pretty kind of gonna take it back from when I with Laura, like those little sprinkle Jesus moments, and I just thought that's really cool.
Yeah.
Um I guess this next question that I have for you kind of goes back to what you were just talking about with ECU is while you're in college, where did you think God where Where did you think God would have you, and how is that different from where He has you now?
Um, Definitely in college, I was ambitious. I have always been ambitious, so I set my sights high, and I didn't start out in the major that I ended up graduating with. And so when I entered college, I thought I was going to be an interior designer. When I exited college, I have a bachelor's of science in communication and an MBA. And now I work in marketing and events. And I never thought I would be in this industry. Um, Marketing, yes, but I work with dementia and Alzheimer's patients, and it's really hard, but so rewarding. And I 6 years ago would never have guessed that's where I would be now. Um, and I'm struggling to find a full time job, which I never thought would happen either. But at the same time, I'm so content with not having that because I am trusting him. And I do know that like my perfect opportunity is going to come along and it's going to be worth the wait. Um, and it's helped me deal with a lot of rejection. Um, I think it was really easy in college to like get a part time job, and I was in an organization. I was around a lot of people, and I worked really really hard. And the transition from doing all of that to now not being able to get hired has been really hard for me. Um, but it has strengthened my faith, just like every other challenge that I faced in college did. I think each year that goes by, I have a different idea of what I want the next year to have, and it never actually happens that way. And I'm learning to be okay with that, to be okay with the unknown, and kind of excited by it because there's so much that we don't know about our future that God knows about our future. Mm-hmm. And like, I'm still here. There's still a purpose I'm still here for. And I'm excited to see what that is. And I just have to trust in him that he's going to make it happen.
Yeah. I feel like that's kind of like a conversation that we've had a lot is because we both went to school for kind of like the same thing. Like, yeah, you got your master's and I didn't get my master's, but like we're both in that kind of like waiting period of like, okay, where does God have us? Like, we're both in a job that we would not have thought that this is where God would have us, but I guess just like that idea of like trusting, okay, God has us here for a reason. Like, what is He growing in us? What is He trying to teach us in this moment? And I just think that's really cool.
Yeah.
So how has allowing yourself to trust God with your future helped you not to have to worry about your future?
This is probably what I struggle with the most. I am a control freak, and I like to be in control of everything. Very type A person, and I used to have my whole future planned out. And I've struggled the past 2 years specifically with not being where I expected myself to be. Mostly in my career, but also in like my romantic life. Like, I don't have a boyfriend or anything, and I struggle a lot with like comparison and all of that stuff. But I think what has helped me the most with all of that and learning to trust him and really like just leaning on him has just been um, surrounding myself with a community of people who can pour into me, and who can remind me of his word and not the thoughts in my head. um, I am I am on anxiety medicine. I do have really bad panic attacks, and I deal a lot with anxiety and depression. And I think that therapy has really helped me too. And my therapist has really helped me find ways to deal with it as a Christian. And that allows me to like dive into the Bible, into the word, and really hearing what God says and not what my brain is saying. And I still struggle to accept that God is in control of my future and I'm not. But at the same time, I'm content with it. And I used to cry all the time about how I wasn't where I thought I would be. Now I only cry like twice a year. So baby steps, a little improvement. I cry a lot, but not about that. Um, more, it's, I think I have finally accepted that I can't be in control of my life. I have to give it over to him. And I think with that comes age and just also knowledge and like really digging into my Bible and surrounding myself with godly people, which I had never really done before. And um, that has really just allowed me to stop worrying as much about my future and focus on the now. I don't know where I'm going to be next year, but I know where I am going to be tomorrow. And I know that I'm content there and that God is working with me no matter where I am, no matter what phase I'm in, no matter what my brain is telling me. And even if it feels like there's no movement or that I'm in a stagnant place of life, like God is still working behind the scenes. And that gives me a lot of peace and hope for my future.
Yeah. And kind of like that weight off your shoulders that you don't have to worry about tomorrow. No, that's very cool. So I guess that leads us into the next question is what does it look like for you to walk in God's purpose and plan for your life, even if that isn't where you thought you would be?
I think a lot of it is, like I said, walking with people. I'm a chatty Kathy. I love to talk. But I think a lot of your belief system comes from who you surround yourself with. So, surrounding myself with a lot of like minded individuals like yourself, and a lot of people from young adult, and leaning on you guys in my times of need and being vulnerable, and trusting you guys with that. Um, Also, just like dedicating time to actually talk to him. Um, I personally pray like I'm talking to a friend. So I just have conversations with him throughout the day. And that's kind of just helped me honestly just feel his presence more. Feel like he's sitting right across from me and I'm just having a conversation over coffee with him.
Mm-hmm.
And I try to do the same thing with my word. Like I think of it like I'm reading a book to a kid that I'm babysitting or something. And, you know, I have little commentary and like side notes that I make and um, just kind of incorporating him in every aspect of my life. Um, you know, trust goes both ways. He has to trust us. And um, he has entrusted me to be a leader and a disciple for him. So I, in return, can read his word and look at the resources that he's given me, um, so that he can continue to trust me and that I build trust in him because he's living out everything he said that he would do. And I think those have been the two biggest things is really just like every aspect of my life, including like the people I hang out with, the things I do. And I'm not perfect by any means. And I know I'm not perfect, but trying to be the best version of myself starts with understanding who he is. And so, really, just kind of going back to the beginning and really just digging in and understanding who Jesus was and who God wanted us to be.
I like that. And it's like, I like that point where you said that's just kind of like talking to Jesus over coffee. Cause like, that's from the very beginning. Like, that's what God wanted. Like, He wanted us to be in a relationship with Him. Like,
Mm-hmm.
He walked with Adam and Eve in like the cool of the day. So I really like that, what you said. Um, what Bible verses do you think, either Bible verses, do you cling to in the seasons when you might feel lost or discouraged of where God has you?
This is probably no shock to anyone who knows me. But Psalm 46:5, God is within her, she will not fail. Um, I am so, so terrified of failing. And I mean, in every aspect, like a relationship failing, friendships failing, failing. failing in school or failing in my job or disappointing people in my job. Um, and most importantly, disappointing and failing God and thinking that I did something to upset him or to like make him want something negative for my life. And while I know that's not true and that he loves and he forgives, it's something I really do struggle with is thinking that I'm letting him down and that I'm failing him. And I think what really has helped me is in that Bible verse, it says like he's within you. But also just thinking of it differently as if failing is not a bad thing. Without failure, you can't learn. I was in the honors college in college and I had to do a project. And in order to pass the class, you actually have to fail. So you had to fail in at least one aspect of your research and everything. And that was really hard for someone who's a perfectionist who doesn't like to fail. And so I really had to I had to find a way to fail. And that was so hard for me. And I remember doing it and it felt so wrong. And I was so upset. I was like, why do I have to fail? I don't want to. But I learned so much by failing. And so it taught me to not look at failure as a bad thing. Failure is how you learn. Failure is how you change, you grow. Yeah. And so without God, I can't fail. Without God, I can't succeed. Without God, I can't grow. And I need him in me in order to do all of those things. But I'm not going to ever let him down. I'm not ever going to disappoint him because I have him in me and all I have to do is go and ask for his forgiveness when I mess up.
So that just leads us into the next point. You're leading into the next questions really, really well that I have for you. Is if someone came to you and is struggling with their purpose and their plan for their lives and where does God have me? What piece of advice would you give them that is struggling with that?
I would first tell them I'm struggling with it too. I think us specifically at this age is a time where we really just don't know what we have in store for us. We have friends that are getting married, getting pregnant. We have friends that are like us, single, looking for their forever people. We have friends with full-time jobs. We have friends with part-time jobs, people who go back to school. There's so many unknowns in our life at this age. And I think it's so easy to look at someone, especially with social media, and be like, they have it all together. They don't have it all together. And
social media can you can portray yourself any way you want on social media. Mm-hmm. You can portray yourself as if you're in a relationship, you're in this happy relationship. We don't argue, we don't do nothing, but behind the scenes and behind closed doors,
it's a whole different story.
Yeah.
And yeah. So I think if I was having a conversation with someone about giving advice, I would first start with that they are not alone. Not just me, but God. God is with them every step of the way, even when it feels like he's not there. We actually talked about this in church today. There was that 400-year period where nothing really happened in between the Old Testament and the New Testament, and everyone thought that God just wasn't working, but he works in the silence. And he is still working when you don't think he's working. So just because you're not where you thought you were going to be, or just because you don't know what you want to do with your life, that's okay. There's some reason you're in this phase of life. There's something that you're going to learn from it. For me, it's how to strengthen my faith. I think in the past 2 years, a lot of unknowns have happened, and there's a lot more that have been raised. And I think the biggest thing I've learned is to lean on him. And I think that would be my biggest piece of advice is to go to him, talk to him like he's your best friend. Talk to him like you're in a relationship with him. Does not like a romantic relationship, but it doesn't have to be intimidating. It can just be like, hi, I need you. He knows your heart. He knows what you need. And he already knows you're struggling. So find peace in knowing like you're not telling him anything he doesn't already know. And that has also helped me a lot. Like yes, it's hard to admit your mistakes and that you've messed up, but like he already knows you messed up. He's already forgiven you. He just wants you to go to him.
Yeah. And like the comfort in like that what you said, like he knows you, like he already knows what you're struggling with. Like he made you. Like he knows like what's good, like what you need to get you through that. And so I just think that's cool too, to like find comfort in that of like you can go to someone that knows you. Kind of like when you go to your best friend, like you know your best friend's gonna make you smile because they know you. And like
Yeah.
that's kind of like Jesus. So
Yeah.
that's really cool.
Yeah.
Um is there anything else that maybe you want to add that you didn't add or anything?
Um, I think kind of adding on to that last point, um, we are all going through our own challenges. We're all going through things, even if we don't talk about it, even if we don't portray it. Um, and I think it's just really important to remember to just love others how Jesus loved you, um, and how he continues to love you. Even though you might mess up and you might make mistakes in friendships, and it's not always easy, and we have emotions and all of these feelings, and there's so much stuff that's going on in the world that we don't have control over. Um, just to remind yourself to have grace, not just with yourself, but with others. Um, and just to spread his word and spread the love and positivity that he always spreads for us.
Um, wow, that's awesome. I learned a lot of stuff that I didn't know from you, and that was really cool. Um, so I just want to say thank you for coming on One Know Something Crazy. And thanks for tuning in, guys. Make sure you tune in every Thursday. And yeah, we'll see you next week. Bye, guys.
Bye.